Welcome to the National Women's Fitness Academy podcast. We're here to talk about women's health, female hormones, body image, and all things health and fitness.
Hello, girls, and welcome back to another episode of the Women's Fitness Academy's podcast. I'm your host, Siggy, one of the WFA's educators and a women's body image and fitness coach. Today, I'm chatting with the lovely Natasha Godfrey, who is a naturopath and a mindset coach who specializes in women's health. Now, for those who don't know Natasha, over the past 5 years, she has studied at the Australian's #1 natural health college, specializing in naturopathic medicine. Natasha's mission is also to educate women about their cycles and the seasons of life, from menstruation to fertility to menopause, and empowering women to make informed decisions around their health and in a natural and sustainable way. Natasha, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Sig. I'm super excited to have this conversation today.
Me too. So let's dive straight in, because too often I come across so many women who are in the health and fitness industry, but there's always a back end story to why they got into what they're doing right now. So I would love to know, what got you so passionate about women's health?
Yeah, beautiful. So it definitely started virtually when I first got my cycle. And from then, I think at a young age, I come from a family that's quite taboo, and I had no idea what a normal cycle looked like, what pads I should be using, what tampons, all the different things in between. Yeah. And I was just really confused, and it wasn't something that you spoke up about to maybe your parents or your friends. I was kind of embarrassed, right? And as time went on, I started getting some really off symptoms. I was like, what's going on? Like, is this normal? I've heard, some of my friends say, periods are horrible, all the things. And I ended up speaking up to my mom, and I was getting this pain in my abdomen. I was like, okay, what's going on? And anyway, I ended up going to the doctors, as you do. And I'm from a country town, so resources in country towns aren't usually the best, but you get what you're given, right? And anyway, I ended up going to the GP's office with my mom, and from then I ended up being diagnosed with PCOS. And this was at age maybe 15 or 16. And I had no idea what PCOS was. Back then, it was quite new. And it was one of those new diagnoses that everyone was kind of getting labeled with. And I didn't know what it meant. And I was very confused. I was like, what do I do? Can I get rid of it? And all the different things. But sometimes when you go to specific GPs, usually their only treatment is with any sort of hormonal condition or fertility issue is, what is it? Go on the pill or take contraception. Yeah. And that's what I did. Yeah. I ended up getting the implant, the rod in my arm, and I had that for, about 6 years, but it reduced the pain that I was having, but nothing really got better at all. It was just masking everything that was going on. And it was in that moment as well, when I was diagnosed, I also was told at the age of 16 that I'd likely never have children. Mm. And I remember just sitting there with my mom, and I had no idea what that meant. I was 16. I did not care about having children. I just started having sex and all the crazy and fun things that you do at 16 years old, or whenever you lose your virginity and all the things. And I wasn't worried. I was like, okay, this may be a good thing, right? Most of us go on contraception because we don't want a period, right? And that was the crazy thing in that moment. Part of me was like, oh, this is actually kind of good. But part of me seen the sadness and the trauma that my mum experienced in that moment. And I was like, fuck. Am I allowed to swear on this podcast? Okay,
yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I was like, shit, this must be something big, because my mum just had this fear response on her face when the GP said that. And I was just like, I'm 16. It doesn't really affect me yet. I'll cross that bridge when I get there. And I see that sort of mindset and mentality with a lot of women, is if something happens reproductively, is, okay, well, it doesn't matter. I'll just deal with it once I want to have kids. Or the GP says, don't worry about it until you want to have kids, or these types of mentalities. But that is just wrong. Like, that should not be said, because if you aren't addressing the issues now, then the issues are still going to be there when you try and conceive, whether that's 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the track. And it's probably going to be worse. And it's going to be harder to try and recover from it as well. So within that moment, I ended up going on contraception, and I just tried to forget about it. So that was my trauma response from that experience, is I just wanted to forget about it and not worry about it. So I just sort of went on with my life. You know, I was still getting the pain, and I would get regular checkups, internal ultrasounds, and all the things to make sure that, you know, nothing else sinister was happening, but I was still having the pain. Occasionally I'd have painful sex and I'd have to stop having intercourse. And my partner at the time was really worried because obviously he wanted to have children. And I was like, not worried about it, because my trauma response was to just repress it and not think about it and not worry about it, because it was too scary for me to even think of. A lot of women that I work with in fertility and having children can be the most sensitive topic out of all topics, in my opinion. It's one of the most sensitive topics, especially for women, when there's the thought or the idea that potentially children may not be an option. Yeah. And that's what I did, was just try and forget about it. And I did for a very, very, very long time. And that's the segue what got me into studying naturopathy, because that's not what I was doing when I was younger. I was actually studying architecture. So I ended up having a full 360 and moved to the Gold Coast and started studying naturopathy. And through that experience, through learning, through a model through naturopathy, which is very heavily integrated with Western medicine and physiology, but also integrated with natural medicine as well, it really gave me more of a holistic approach to healthcare, rather than, okay, this is your diagnosis, this is the medication that you take to suppress the symptoms, because that's just bullshit.
Yeah.
So many diagnoses are wrong, or so many diagnoses don't give people the option or give people the hope or the faith that they can heal from this. Yeah. And that might be because legalities and things like this from GPs, for one, or it could be from not having the education around specific conditions. Yeah. So, yeah, it's massive. It happens all the time. And that's what I found with myself, is I was actually misdiagnosed with PCOS when I was younger. And I don't know yet, but with my fertility, I probably can guarantee that that's wrong too. Because now being off contraception, having a healthy cycle, connecting to my body and tracking my cycle, I now know that I would absolutely be able to get pregnant if I wanted to. And I just feel so strongly around diagnosis and not owning a diagnosis as a label, because there's so many conditions out there that you can treat through different modalities other than pharmaceuticals. Because especially when we speak in terms of reproductive health, there's not many reproductive medications out there. Let's be honest. What's the number one reproductive medication? Contraception. That's it. Yeah. You've got endo, you've got PCOS, you've got PMS, you've got a missing period, whatever it is. What do they give you? They give you contraception. Does that treat anything? No, it just suppresses your natural cycle. So yeah, sure, you won't get any symptoms, but does it actually treat the root cause? No, not at all. Doesn't even scratch the surface. So reproductive issues work so well with herbal medicine and natural remedies and a holistic approach, rather than just suppressing your body's natural processes. That's not going to work ever. So that was my journey, and healing my own body, and now not being in any pain at all, and having a regular cycle, not being on any contraception, and being the healthiest version of myself now, and just knowing what my body's telling me is so fucking powerful. Is so fucking powerful. And that's the reason I do what I do, is to really empower other women to know how to do the same.
I love that. I love literally everything about it. As you're talking, and I'm like, oh my God, I have a question about this. I want to place a comment with that. But first of all, in terms of like diagnosis, it's so freaking common for people to be like, oh, I have PCOS, so no, I can't have children, or my doctor said that I have to be on medication for the rest of my life. As you said, it's like more of as you said, like it's a suppression of the actual reality, but it's also placing a mental block on the person's diagnosis, because I know many women who have PCOS, who have children, who have had kids, who are going through, fertility journeys. So it just shows you it is possible to live a healthier lifestyle no matter what the diagnosis is. And even with ADHD, that you are diagnosed with ADHD. Oh my God, I know so many people these days who are diagnosed with ADHD, and so many of them are not on medication because they've gone down the natural route. Now, those who have taken the medication, of course, that's going to help them. Whatever works for you, do you. But there's always a different way to go about it. And I always believe, and I always suggest to my clients to get a second opinion as well, whether it's from myself, whether it's from their GP, whether it's a naturopath, whatever, another coach. A second opinion is always available out there, instead of just listening to one particular person and going, oh, they said that, so I need to go down that route.
Yes, 100%. Always, always, always get a second opinion. And women are so divinely intuitive, whether you believe it's intuition, whether it's God, whether it's spirit, whatever religion it is that you follow. You have divine intuition, especially as a woman. We always know what our partners are up to, or when someone's
always
up to, right? So you have intuition, whoever's listening to this, is if you have a gut feeling about something, go with that. Even if you're going against someone that has a degree or has a certain title or status, a doctor, a gynecologist, whoever it may be, you know your body best. So really trust that gut instinct to whatever it's telling you. If you're feeling that something's off, go and get that second opinion, because it's really integral and crucial to your health and well-being.
100%. And on the topic of intuition, as you mentioned before, we're so connected to our bodies. However, for so many years, as you said yourself, you suppressed a lot of emotions as you went through your own journey. And I can relate to that. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners can relate to this, that yes, they have that intuition, they have that like ick gut feeling, but they don't go ahead and do anything about it. They just think, oh, this is my reality, I'm just going to go ahead with it. What are some signs that you noticed that your intuition started to become stronger and more powerful by, making these healthier decisions?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Well, I probably have a story to go with this, definitely. So I know if any listeners have been on contraception and then come off, holy moly, the difference is just crazy. So I remember being on contraception, and at that point in my life, and with what I knew then, you're only doing the best with what you have at that point in time. I was just doing my best with what I knew and what I had. And I thought being on contraception was great because I was quite, my emotions were quite plateaued, if that's probably the best way to explain it. I was quite level, like there was no change or flux and flow, But when you come off contraception, it's kind of like the beautiful waves of the ocean. You're flowing in and you're flowing out. Sometimes the tide's in, sometimes the tide's out, but it's just flowing with that natural cycle of the moon, right? We're exactly the same. And without that, we're like a flat lake, essentially.
Literally.
Yeah? We're literally like a flat lake with no current, with nothing going on inside of it. There's no energy. It's stagnant. It's like black water sitting there, essentially. And that's kind of how I felt when I was on contraception. And while I thought, I was very connected to who I was, it really made me act more in my masculine a lot. Yeah. I was very go, 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 do, smashing the gym. I still love the gym, side note. But at that point in time, I was just a maniac. Yeah. I was just going, 7 days a week, going hard at the gym, going hard at work, and all these things, disconnected from myself and who I was at my essence. And I didn't understand that. And the listeners that may be going through that transition, you may not understand it in the moment, because it's not until hindsight that you can really make sense of what you've experienced and the difference. Yeah. So it wasn't until I came off and a further period after I really could honor and respect being a woman more. Because before that, I was talking about this in my women's circle on the weekend, is before that, I really rejected the feminine. I really rejected other women, you know, whether it be through, you know, judgment, whether it be through criticism, whatever it was, you know, children, you know, even having a cycle. I was like, I don't want to have that. That's gross, whatever. It's annoying. You know, it disrupts my day, blah, 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 insert complaint here. And then now I think as I've grown older as well and come to respect myself more as a woman and what it means to be a woman is I can really connect to myself and my intuition. Because if we're disconnected to our womb space, which is our reproductive area, then we're going to be disconnected to our intuition every damn time. Yeah. Because it's like that motherly instinct, whether you're a mother or not, you've still got that essence within you. Is that's how you connect to that divine source, is through that womb space energy. And if we're disconnected from that by, you know, pumping ourselves with synthetic hormones and disconnecting to that monthly flow and flux, then we're disconnected to our intuition, full stop.
And essentially you are disconnected from it. And I'm so glad you brought up that topic of contraception, because I literally felt like that when I was on it. I went on contraception when I was about 13 due to bad acne and really bad PMS pains. And, you know, bless my mum at the time, she didn't know and she did her best to obviously support me. And the best thing at the time is, contraception. And I was on it for about 10 years of taking the pill. And I remember the day I decided to come off it. Oh my God. At the time, it felt as if it was the worst day of my freaking life, because I already realized the fluctuations that first week of coming off it, of the ebbs and flows of my moods. My acne started coming back. It was just like all these crazy symptoms. But like you said, it's such a beautiful way for us to connect more into our bodies, because when we were on it, it was literally just flatline. Like people will be like talking to me or tell me a sad story, or it'll be a comedy and we laugh, and I'd literally be numb. I'd be like, oh yeah, I don't find that funny. Or someone will tell me a really sad story. I wouldn't cry. I'll be like, oh yeah, whatever. Yeah. So you're so apathetic to it. So yeah, I absolutely love that story, and hopefully a lot of our listeners are listening and going, oh my God, that's me. Or maybe they're realizing, hey, right now maybe contraception isn't the best option for me right now. And you know what, like, since I've been off it, every time I speak with a client, they're like, oh, I'm on the pill, I'm thinking of coming off it, but my partner still wants me to stay on it. And I'm like, get him to put a rubber on. Like, why do we have to risk our bodies for the pleasure that both of you wanting to have? Or just do the freaking pull out method and make sure that you're tracking your cycle.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I love that you say that. Put a rubber on, right? Because the thing is, you know, this is the whole point of coming off contraception. And I see it a lot of the times with clients or, you know, people that reach out to me on social media is, I'm scared to come off contraception because I don't want to fall pregnant. Yeah, this is the main problem that I hear from a lot of people. And hell yeah, it can be scary as shit coming off contraception, especially if you've got a long-term partner and you're used to having sex quite often and all the things, right? Because the thing is, before that, we just abused the power of being a woman and used contraception so we didn't have to track our cycle or actually take responsibility for our own bodies and well-being.
Oof, yes.
Right? Yeah. And it's like, okay, girl, put your big girl pants on and take some responsibility for yourself, because once you come off contraception, you will never go on it ever again once you feel how amazing that you feel. And every damn client, every friend, everyone that I know would never go back on it after coming off it for such a long period of time, because it is beautiful to go through the different seasons of the month. You know, sometimes I feel more tired and I allow myself to rest. Sometimes I'm more energized. I'm like, hell yeah, I'm going to go get a PB in the gym. Or, you know, I'm ovulating at the moment, so I'm on a podcast. What a great time to do a podcast when you're ovulating, right? It's going to be full of energy and excitement and all the things. And you can actually plan things around your month if you really want to, right? And plan to have rest when you need rest and really honor that, yeah, rather than being so goddamn hard on yourself. And there's a quote from Dr. Tracy Sims, and she's amazing in the women's health space. And one of her quotes is, "Women are not small men. Women are not small men." And it hit hard so much. And I didn't realize what it meant until recently. And I was really judging myself and comparing myself to my partner, right? Because he gets up really early. He will go and train at like 4 a.m. and then he'll go to work all day. You know what typical guys like, if they're working, strenuous, hard jobs and things like that. And I was comparing myself, and I'm like, I need to get up early and, get things done and, all the masculine energy, do, go. And I reminded myself, I've got a 28-day, give or take, hormonal cycle. Yeah. I don't have a 24-hour hormonal cycle like a male. Yeah. He can recover a lot quicker than me. I've got different flows and flux. He's more like a lake. He can stabilize a little bit. Yeah. I'm more like the ocean. I'm fluxing and flowing. I've got the current coming in and then coming out. I'm changing throughout the month, and I am not him. And I know a lot of listeners might be able to compare, whether they're comparing to other women or other men. Sometimes you just need to relax a little. Sometimes you need to, put down the accelerator a little bit more, right? And that happens all the time with women. I see it all the time. And the difference is with women produce their hormones from their ovaries, but also from their adrenal glands. Yeah. Men only produce their hormones from their testes. So that's why men don't, well, this is not scientific, but men don't stress that much, right? But women, yeah, and it doesn't affect them that much. They stress and it doesn't affect their hormones, right? They can still, get a hard on and ejaculate and all the good things. But women, if we're stressed out, our ovaries are trying to produce the hormones, but then our little adrenals are kicking in, which is our stress glands, and they're pumping out cortisol and adrenaline and noradrenaline and all the stress chemicals. And then we're stressed out and something happens to our cycle, or we don't feel like having sex and all these things. So this is just a reminder to really honor yourself and know that women, you're not small men. So honor yourself and what you need, and honor your stress as well is really important.
Seriously, such a good point. And I really want to share a personal story. I actually wasn't going to talk about it. I'm going to try and not tear up, but I literally feel really called to share this. Oh my God, I'm tearing up. Anyway, on the topic of stress. So when women are stressed, we, as you mentioned, we don't realize how badly it can affect our bodies, not just mentally, physically, like reproductive wise. And recently I went through a massive breakup. I had a miscarriage and I lost about, I think it was 5 to 6 kilos within a week. Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And to put things into perspective, a lot of women don't realize how much internally they suffer and they suppress it down. They don't talk about it. They don't do anything about it. And it just shows how much your body needs you at a time of stress. And like you said, when we go through the ebbs and flows, it's literally letting your body be in that ebb time to really nourish yourself during those really hard times. But when you start flowing upwards, as you mentioned, like with the waves, which I absolutely love that analogy, it's like embracing those good times and reflecting of what did you do differently when you did feel so ebb and down to help you regulate to feel better as well. Because we know, as you mentioned, with the stress side of things, we're literally not going to want to do anything. It affects our mental capacity, our work capacity, our physical capacity, like so many different areas. And it's just like, wow, like sometimes we really need to like tune in and be like, okay, instead of forcing ourselves as we try and do because men do it out there, it's just like, all right, let's come back into our bodies and figure out what it is that exactly that you can do that day, whether it's one thing or whether it's 3 things, and not trying ace 10, your 10 things on your to-do list on that one day.
Yeah. I hear you. And stress is everyone hears about stress. Yeah, it's like this umbrella term. What's the cause of everything? Stress. Any disease, any issues. Stress is always a contributor, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, spiritual stress.
Yeah.
It will all impact the body, whether it's your digestion, whether it's your reproductive health, whether it's feeling anxious, whether it's dysregulated blood sugar, whatever it may be, right? So these all contribute to that response. And when we're in that stress response, in that fight or flight response, what happens is our bodies will prioritize that stress response before it's going to prioritize digestion. So it's going to reduce the amount of blood flow to the digestion. Yeah. So you're going to feel constipated. You might get diarrhea instantly, whatever it may be, or, reproductive wise, you may have irregular cycles, heavy periods, pain, inflammation, all the different things that are going on within the body. So it's really important, especially as a female, to regulate your nervous system, whether it be through supplements, whether it be through herbals, and making sure you're implementing lifestyle strategies as well. So one thing that I always say to my clients is schedule time for yourself to do nothing, or to go to the beach, or to go for a relaxing walk, go to a recovery center, whatever it is, and schedule it in your week to prevent yourself from going to that place of burnout, or to that place where you're going to be stuck in a hole for a couple of days. Because most women, and I've been there too, and sometimes it still happens to me as well, if we've got busy weeks and stuff like that, is we'll let our battery go all the way down to empty rather than catching it when it's half empty. Yeah. This is a message to everyone, because we're in this era of technology and always doing things, and price increases and all the different stressors in life, is making sure that you recharge your battery when it's half full, and don't let it go any lower than that, because if you do, that's when it's going to get more expensive, it's going to take you more time to overcome it, and all the different challenges that come with that. So check yourself and schedule time every single week. Even if it's just an hour, it can be 20 minutes, whatever you can fit in your schedule. I know mums, if any mums are on the podcast, they've got kids as well. If their business is working, all the things that can get even more chaotic, right? So even if it's like 5-10 minutes a week, I don't care. Start somewhere, put it in a schedule, and make it a non-negotiable, that's the time that you have to yourself to do whatever it is that you need to do for you.
100%. And it's also the fact of just taking a little bit more responsibility for yourself, as much as you're responsible for the external demands that you have there. And like you said, like, stress is always going to be there. Okay. Like, it's a fact. It always has been. It always will be, whether it's a relationship stress, whether it's a work stress, whether it's money, whether it's health, like whatever it is, it comes and goes. And something that I absolutely love telling my clients, everything's temporary. Whether it's bad or whether it's good. Yes, you may be going through a really hard time, like myself right now. I'm trying to recover from like all the fucking shit show that I'm going through, but I know it's not going to be there forever. Like, I'm already feeling better, like for the last few weeks. So we know that as time goes, and as you do the work and taking care of yourself, being responsible and taking action, things will get better. But we also know when things are really, really good, hold on to those really good moments, because again, a bad moment might come. Who knows? You might get sick, or you might get injured, like we just don't know what's going to come across our way. But I love the fact, as you said, it's just doing that one thing whenever you can. And that goes back to taking responsibility for yourself, because you can't expect other people to help you or to be there by your side when the shit hits the fan, if you're not actually taking action and taking care of yourself first.
100%. And this is a generalization, but I see it a lot with women, is it's in our nature, because we are the maternal beings.
Yeah, nurturing.
We're the nurturing beings. So it's in our genes that we always put everyone else first. This is a generalization, not everyone, but I would say most women put a lot of other people first, whether it be family, friends, business, dogs, cats, children, all the things, is we always put everyone else first, right? And this is a moment to put yourself first, so you can pull yourself up, because it's so important.
Yes, 100%. And you made a really good point earlier about our reproductive system. What was it? We were talking about, oh my God, talking about,
Regards to stress.
pardon?
Regards to stress.
Yes. Yeah. But you said something about, in regards to stress and sex. We mentioned that so we spoke about like how women, we're obviously with our reproductive system, it does shut down. So does men. Not obviously, we don't know scientifically the difference of it, but also what brought to my mind around sex and women is, I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, if you know this or if you practice this, but when many women don't realize the impact of sex that has onto our body.
In what context?
In terms of energy wise.
Oh, spiritual energy or physiology energy?
Spiritually, to be honest, like we know physically you insert it in and you get an orgasm and it's pleasurable.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. But in terms of spiritual energy, I think a lot of women don't realize that the importance of having sex with someone who you truly care about and not just having sex for the sake of it.
Yeah. I love the topic of sex. It's probably one of my favorite topics. And
Okay.
my laugh. So important because I did a post on this the other day actually, and you can take it or leave it. Is around sex, and sex is emotional exchange as much as we're exchanging fluids, orgasm, hopefully, and all the things in between. It is an emotional exchange. Yeah, if you're divinely connected with that person emotionally, the sex is going to be 10 times better, right? Compared to, someone that you've just met. Yeah, sure, you can have great sex, but typically when, you love someone or you're deeply connected with them, the sex is going to be way better, right? And I'm sure most of us can agree with that. And within that moment, you can exchange emotional attachments as well within that moment. So I did this post the other day, and it was more in the frame of, have you ever had sex with someone in the past and really taken on their negative energy? Yeah. And I was like, I had an influx of messages from all different women telling me different stories and spilling the tea and all the different things, which was really interesting and interesting to hear. And within that, what can actually happen is if we do have an experience like that. So a lot of women, it can impact through their pelvic floor. If we're talking physiology wise, can impact that pelvic floor. And I see this a lot of the time with women that have painful sex and they've cancelled out all the other reasons that they're having painful sex. So there's no infection, there's no BV, there's no candida or anything like that. They don't have endo, they don't have adenomyosis, they don't have any of these conditions, right? Everything's been ruled out, right? And they're like, well, okay, I've done every testing, but I'm still getting painful sex. What the hell's going on? And typically it's from that hypertonic pelvic floor. And in my experience, I've seen this a lot of the times with women is when they've had sex with men or they've just had sex in general when they didn't feel safe. And what happens when we don't feel safe? We clench up, we tighten up, we suppress things, we contract. Yeah. It's like we crawl into our shell essentially, and we're contracting our muscles and trying to preserve the energy because we don't feel safe. Yeah. And that's when we go into that fight or flight. So it's typically see that a lot. You might, clench. If you're someone that clenches your jaw, potentially you probably have a hypertonic pelvic floor. And that's one of the main things I see physiology wise is that hypertonic pelvic floor, because one thing women need within sex is safety. If they don't feel safe, then you're not going to orgasm and you're probably going to clench up. It's not going to be enjoyable. So one of the things that I also wrote was things that we want to leave in 2022 is sex with multiple partners. Because like what you're alluding to is when we do have sex, we're releasing our emotional energy, whether it be through orgasm, hopefully it should be released through that, right? And when we're doing that, every time we're releasing our energy and our aura through that emotion. And we want it to be in a positive frame. And if it's not in a positive frame, then, afterwards we're going to feel like shit, or we're going to feel a little bit uneasy or disconnected. Yeah. Our ocean's going to be a little bit rough afterwards.
Wow, it's such a good point that you made. I think our listeners are going to have sex tonight and be like, let's see if it's painful or enjoyable.
Yeah.
But you made such a good point, because for, I think maybe it was like a few years ago, and I was in a relationship, and it's funny how we're like talking about this, because now it just makes me realize how unsafe I felt within the relationship, whether it was me or the whole dynamic, and it was causing me a lot of pelvic pain, and I was getting all these tests done, and doctors were like, "There's nothing wrong," and I was getting blood tests and all this, and I was just like, "What the hell is going on here?" But it makes so much sense right now, as you said, because if we don't feel safe with our sexual partners, then that, that emotional capacity of, having safe sex with someone is going to decline.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's something that we definitely overlook.
Yeah.
Is the spiritual aspect of sex. It's such a sacred practice, and absolutely it should be enjoyed. However, I now know, obviously when I was younger, you do all the crazy things, you're testing and trying and all the things in between, right? But now, being a little bit older and having a bit more experience, I definitely honor and respect more the practice, the sacred practice of sex, and really enjoying what it can give you, what you can give to your partner and what they can give to you and what you give to yourself in that moment. Because innately, when we talk about orgasm, in my opinion, I feel like you give yourself an orgasm, because if you're not connected to your body in that moment, if you're not connected to yourself, you will not orgasm. I work with a lot of women that struggle to orgasm, or they can't orgasm with certain partners, but then can orgasm with other partners. It's like, well, girlfriend, one, are you feeling safe? Are you feeling safe within your own body? Are you even connected to your own body and sensations in your own body? Yeah, if you're on contraception, yeah, probably not, right? Yeah. And then on top of that, if you're not feeling safe with your partner, maybe you've just had a fight, maybe he's lied to you, maybe, whatever it is going on in the relationship, maybe you're consciously aware of it, or you might not even be aware of it. This is the tricky thing, is some people aren't even aware that they're not feeling safe in the relationship, because it could be, oh, he said one thing and then didn't do the other. He said one thing, but he didn't follow through. It might be something subtle like that, where it's creating that level of distrust, or it could be something like he's cheated on me in the past, or he's lied to me, or whatever it is, right? So there's no discrimination of the spectrum of what it is. It could literally just be from, oh, he keeps saying he's going to do the thing, but he doesn't follow through. Therefore, I don't trust him. And you may not even consciously be aware of that. So that's one thing I work through with my emotional trauma clients, is working through their unconscious patterns that they're not realizing that they're playing out, especially within sexual relationships.
It's so important. What are some other practices that you would suggest for our listeners? Because we mentioned a few, more of like the vagina practices of like having more of that, sacred, safe, protected sex. And, as you mentioned, like also not having multiple sexual partners. But what are some other practices that you've noticed that have helped yourself or your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll be honest, I'm going to be like super transparent here. I don't think I've ever spoken about this to anyone, so this is really funny. So I think for me is definitely when I was younger, I was, trying different sexual partners, I had long-term relationships and stuff like that. So me personally, in my experience, I was always seeking that external pleasure. So I was always expecting external pleasure to come to me in that way. So, my partner should pleasure me and it should make me feel good and blah, blah, blah. I'm sure some people can resonate with that. And then when I came off contraception is when I was connecting back to my body and the sensations and the different feelings, and actually being able to orgasm after coming off contraception as well, which was awesome, is connecting to my own body first. So that's when I actually started, trying self-pleasure and just connecting to the sensations in my body as well. So one practice that I got taught by a close friend was, and when I say self-pleasure, like it doesn't have to be masturbation or things like that. Self-pleasure can literally be the sensation of touch. So one thing that I began practicing was literally just like having time with myself, for one, looking at my body in the mirror and appreciating what I have and the different aspects of my body, whether it be cellulite, a flab here or muscles here, or, different coloration and all the different things, just honoring my body and really respecting it and not judging it like I did in the past. Really honoring it for what it provided me. And then looking at myself in the mirror was really beautiful as well. But what I began practicing, I would literally put my arms out, I'll put a nice, essential song on, maybe light a candle, maybe light some sage, whatever you enjoy doing. And I would literally put my arms out in front of me and literally just hover my hands over my arms where you could literally just touch the hairs on your arms, just like ever so gently. And within that practice, it just helped me connect to that kinesthetic touch. Yeah, for me, I'm a really visual person, so I'm always doing the visual things. But for me to just slow down, because a lot of us are just go, using that adrenal energy all the time, stressed. I was go. I just need to slow down and feel the sensation of touch for a moment. Yeah, because if we're stressed out, we're not going to be able to slow down and enjoy an orgasm or sex or anything like that, right? So I'd literally just hover my hands over my arms and close my eyes and literally just feel that sensation on my arms to connect to the sensation of touch. Yeah. And this might sound like so silly or just like, oh, is that it? Right. And that's literally it. I really invite you all to literally practice it and like do it for 5 minutes. You can do it anywhere on your body that feels safe and comfortable for you. Some clients just want to do it on their arms to begin with. Some want to do it on their boobs and, on their yoni and everywhere else. It's totally up to you where you want to practice it. And it can be a gradual thing as well. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't discriminate where you're at in that journey. You literally just start wherever you're comfortable and you can go to wherever you feel like you need to go to because it's your practice. So that was one thing that I did in the beginning, just to connect to my body, and then through self-pleasure as well. So trying different things, trying different toys and stuff like that, just to connect to, okay, where's my clitoris? Where's my vagina? Where's this part of my body? Where's my labia? Where's, just actually connecting to the different body parts within your reproductive system and really connecting to that so I could connect to my partner deeper. That literally helped me be able to connect to my partner deeper and be able to orgasm and be able to feel safe within the sexual practices, because I knew what I liked. I knew how to tell my partner, hey, can you do this? Hey, I like this. This is what I want, because if you don't know that, then you're not going to be enjoying the practice of sex, and it's not going to feel safe because someone else is going to be doing something to you that you're not comfortable with or that you've got no idea about. Yeah. This doesn't mean that you don't go out and explore and do all crazy things with your partner at all, but this just means maybe in the beginning of your journey of connecting to your body, this may be what it looks like. And know that it's safe to ask for what you want. That's the most important part of this, is knowing that it's safe to ask for what you want, whether it be in, a clinical setting, whether it be with, a sexual practice with yourself or your partner.
It's so empowering to have these conversations in the open, because I have a feeling that some of our listeners may feel a little bit ick about this.
Right.
And you know what? I felt that ick many years ago before I started exploring my body and my yoni and self-pleasure. But you have to start somewhere, because like you said, if you don't know what you like, how are you going to express that to your partner of what you enjoy doing? Because they might be doing something and you might be laying there going, oh my God, can we just end this? Like, this is so boring, or you just don't like it. So, and I think something that many people don't speak about is, you mentioned mirror work, but it's actually looking at all of you, every part of you. And yes, I'm talking about your vagina, your vulva, like everything, and having a really good understanding of yourself, of where everything is. And like you said, that playing around in terms of what you enjoy doing, so that way you'll be able to have a better sex life, not only with yourself, but with future partners or your current partner.
Yeah, 100%. And I was the exact same. Like, sometimes I still laugh at myself. Like, I remember watching, there was this episode on Goop, and there was this lady on there, I can't remember her name, but she was practicing mirror work and she was doing it with clients, and it was this older lady. She would have been in her 50s or 60s, and it was hilarious. I remember watching it and I was like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, this is wild. You know, my mom and my dad, like, so taboo in my household. Like, what the hell is going on? But I was like super curious. And, you know, I watched it, and then I remember after that, I was like, oh, I should try it, you know, and I was laughing my head off at myself at that time. And I was like, you're such a weirdo. Like, what are you doing? Like, this is so wild. And then I was like, girl, you actually study this at clinic. Like, what are you doing? You know, you learn about all these things within your degree, but you won't actually go and look at your own. Like, where's the true disconnection? So if there's a listener listening to this and thinking, oh my God, that's totally whack, I'd never do that. If you have sex, then you definitely need to be doing this, right? Because what happens is we're so disconnected because we go to chapter 10 instead of starting at chapter 1, right? So most of us go straight to having sex, oral, all the things, rather than starting in the beginning and actually learning what body parts that you have, how they work, what my cycle looks like, what's normal, what's not normal. How do I just feel the sensation of touch in my body? What is an orgasm? You know, how can I orgasm through touch? Fuck yes, you can, right? Like, how backwards are we? We're trying to go to all these crazy things that we think are normal, which aren't really actually that normal. So why don't we normalize actually being able to have an orgasm through touch, literally through touch, that's not even on, you know, private parts or anything like that? Wouldn't that be crazy? And most people on here are probably listening and thinking, is that even possible? Fuck yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Right? And if you can't have an orgasm at all, you're disconnected to your body. You're disconnected to your body and yourself and your own feminine energy. And that's something that you need to do some work on for yourself, because you can never get something outside of yourself. Yeah. If you're wanting an orgasm from someone and you can't actually connect to yourself and your body, it's never going to happen. So you need to do some inner work and connect to your own body, whether that be through touch, whether that be through learning about yourself, you know, all the different things. That's where I would start.
I wish all the women who are listening to this, who come across this and share this with their friends, that they all start exploring a little bit more with their sexual energy, for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
100%. Before we finish off, what is one healthy tip that you can give our listeners for a healthy reproductive, healthy vagina tip for 2023?
Just one?
Oh, unless you have more.
Oh, okay. For a healthy reproductive system and a healthy vagina. Oh, okay. I've got a few. There's definitely a few. Yeah. So number one that I would see, well, they're in no particular order, but I see a lot with women. I'm definitely not vegan or vegetarian at all, and I recommend most of my clients aren't. But again, it's your own personal choice. There's no shame around either one, but this is just what I recommend. Okay, so it's up to you whether you take it or leave it, right? But number one for me would definitely be red meat and organ meats in your diet, 120%. Ignore the old research, I say in inverted commas, around not being able to have red meat only once a week. Like, that's just bullshit. So number one for me would definitely be red meat and organ meats, whether it be beef liver, beef spleen is really good if you're low in iron. All your different organs are really, really good. So that would be my number one, because I see all the time women not eating enough protein and not eating enough red meat. And they're usually iron deficient just from not eating enough most of the time. So that would be my number one. Number two would definitely be stop wearing bras as much. And we talk about bras a lot, but secondarily, don't wear underwear as much either. Yeah. So most women would be like, yeah, I'm not wearing bras, blah, blah, blah. But what about your underwear? Yeah. So allowing yourself to breathe is really important, and making sure that especially underwear are definitely cotton or bamboo and not synthetic, you know, fabrics and nylon and polyester and all the things. That would be number two, really, really important, because anytime there's a humid or moist condition, especially when it comes to vaginal health, it's just a breeding ground for candida and thrush, BV, different things. So definitely avoid wearing underwear and making it sweaty, or gym tights and stuff like that. Wear them, take them off, yeah. So number two is no bras, no undies. Sometimes, especially at nighttime. At nighttime, free ball if you can. That would be amazing.
I love letting her breathe during nighttime.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. That'd be number 2. Number 3, definitely avoid xenoestrogens. So when I say xenoestrogens, is all your synthetic plastics. So we are surrounded by plastics all the time, and these can disrupt our endocrine system, so our hormones essentially. So even the table that I'm sitting on has xenoestrogens. You know, you go down the street and there's a park chair, it's full of xenoestrogens. We can't get away from it, right? So it's in our furniture and things like that. So it can be a little bit challenging, right? However, the things that we can control is definitely things like BPAs, phthalates, and these things typically are in our plastic containers. So food containers, drink bottles, all those types of things. So if we can avoid them, opt for glass kitchenware is really important. And also phthalates are really high in a lot of our makeup products. So I know a lot of women, this is the most challenging one, and I can also agree it's really challenging for me too, is most products, women's products, whether it be hair care, beauty, makeup especially, is full of phthalates. So trying to opt for organic natural products as much as we can that are low in these types of chemicals. So there is a online website which is called Organic Bunny, and she has an amazing site that's got all your different brands for every type of makeup product. You go for blush, contour, lipsticks, all the different things. So definitely jump on there if you're a listener and you're wanting to swap out your old makeup for some new stuff. Definitely, use what you've got. We want to be sustainable here. Use what you've got unless you're having really bad hormonal issues. And then opt for the new stuff when your things start to run out. So that's what I recommend when you're swapping out old products, old kitchenware, and things like this, because we want to be as sustainable as we can. And if you've invested money into these products, you just want to do your best. I'm not telling you to go out and throw everything you have away.
Baby steps.
Yeah, if you want to do that, go crazy if you can do that. But most clients and most people that I work with can't do that. So it's one thing at a time. Yeah. So when my concealer runs out, then I'll go on Organic Bunny and try a new one, and things like that. So that would be number 3, is stay away from xenoestrogens and plastics as much as we can. And definitely number 4 is drink filtered water 100%. Always filter your water, and making sure that your filtered water either remineralizes the water, because when you filter it, it takes out the minerals, but we do need the minerals in it. Yeah. So when we filter it takes out most things, 99.9% of most things, right? Your chlorine, your fluoride, all the different things in it, but it also takes the minerals. So make sure you remineralize your water, whether it be through adding trace mineral drops or you've got water that does it itself. That would be number 4. And number 5, lucky number 5, is track your basal temperature. So this is the key for women coming off contraception. Either you're wanting to avoid pregnancy or you're wanting to induce pregnancy, works both ways. I use it for both clients, is tracking your basal temperature. So this means you can either use something like a thermometer, like just a home thermometer, and track it every morning, or using something like a temp drop that goes around your arm and tracks an average over the night. So it's a little bit easier to use, a little bit more user-friendly. And tracking the temperature, because what happens, women that may want a little bit more understanding of why we'd track our temperature, is because the day after we ovulate, our temperature will increase. So this shows us that we've just ovulated. Yeah, it's not a form of contraception, but it can help you track your cycle so you know when you're ovulating, because ovulation is when we're most fertile within that 5-day period, 5 to 6 day period. So this can be a really useful tool to learn to connect your body as well. So if you're not wanting to masturbate and self-pleasure and all the things that we've just had a joke and a giggle about, is track your temperature, because this is also a way of connecting to your body. So that would be my lucky number 5 tip, is tracking your basal temperature.
I love everything about them. And I literally just had one when you were talking about measuring your body basal temperature, and for some reason I don't know what it came up to my mind, but having, like, after sex, go to the toilet and pee.
Yes 100%. Yes, always. I just did a post on this recently, is around sexual health and making sure that you're wearing protection, you're urinating after sex, you're having a shower, wash your hands, all the things in between. Don't put any underwear on after it because it's all hot and humid. And we just spoke about, if you're usually get thrush and things like that, make sure you don't put underwear on afterwards. Just let it breathe for a bit. Yep. Great point. Super important. Especially for the girls that get UTIs. All the girls that get UTIs hate that. So yeah, that's definitely for you.
Yeah, seriously. Note taken. Probably everyone's taking notes as we're talking. And you know what? So you should, because if you're a coach or if you're someone who's into personal development, write this stuff down. So then when you come across these, points, you'll remember exactly what to do next time to avoid these situations.
Yeah, 100%.
I love it. I love it. Natasha, thank you so much for today's conversation. I literally loved how we went from talking about PCOS to contraception to having sex to healthy vaginas. This conversation is going to blow a lot of people's minds. And I want to thank you so much for your time. And before we head off, where can our listeners find you and how can they work with you?
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for having me. And they can find me on either Facebook or Instagram at Natasha Godfrey on both. And I've also got a private Facebook group on Facebook, which is Women's Health Secrets. So in there, I post all of my full content, whether it be educational videos and all my full posts as well, which are a bit more in-depth than what I post on Facebook and Instagram. So if you're someone that wants to learn a little bit more about yourself, definitely jump in there. There's a beautiful community of other women that are helpful and supportive and can share their journeys in there as well.
I love it. Love, love, love. Awesome, girls. Well, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please make sure that you screenshot it, tag us at the Women's Fitness Academy, tag myself, tag Natasha. And then till next time, I hope 2023 will be the year of healing your mind, your body, and your vagina.
Ditto.